Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 10th edition of the Pro Wrestling Zone podcast in the new format.
Yeah.
And our topic is kind of out of nowhere, but I think it's very interesting. Celebrities in professional wrestling.
Yes. Well, it's not really all that random. I mean, you know, when we're looking at celebrities within professional wrestling, we obviously have a number of celebrities appearing on the show next on the Crown Jewel show next Thursday.
Yep.
And one of the most noticed celebrities happens to be our president of the United States. So
wait, before we really get into this, let's set some ground rules about the discussion. We're not going to be talking about athletes from other sports going to WWE. So no Ronda Rousey or anything like that.
Well,
Cain Velasquez is not a celebrity. I'd probably say Tyson Fury is more so, but that's still kind of in the realm of combat sports.
Well, again, I think that we can have. I think that if we frame it in the right way, I think
it could be its own episode.
Well,
but celebrities is like
they're draws, though. I mean, I look at them and they can fall into two categories. So we can talk about them, but we shouldn't make that the focus of our episode.
We should
really make the focus of our episode are true celebrities,
mainstream appeal that either involved wrestling or whatever. So
how are we going to divvy up this episode then? What are we going to talk about for the first half of this? Let us know, Tiger High.
So what I was thinking was let's just talk for like 20 minutes and then do the break and then maybe talk for another 10 to 15 and then that's how we're going to do it.
But what are we going to talk about in those segments?
We'll just bring up people and talk about what they did and if it was significant or not, that kind of stuff.
All right.
So let's start with your example, the current president of the United States, Donald Trump. He is a WWE Hall of Famer.
Yep.
He bought Raw for a storyline.
Yep.
And he had the famous match at WrestleMania 23 in the Battle of the Billionaires against Mr. McMahon.
And the Donald Trump and Vince McMahon have been friends for a very long time.
Like early 80s friends.
So,
very, very good friends.
So it's not unusual that we have seen a lot of Donald Trump over the years, especially with Vince McMahon. I don't imagine that continuing, though, after his presidential run is over. It really just depends.
It really does.
But how was having... I liked the way in which Donald Trump was promoted in those storylines, because he was always that rich billionaire, whether it be good or bad, a very good compliment to Mr. McMahon over the years.
And honestly, like they have really good chemistry, mic work wise, because Donald Trump just knows how to play to a camera.
Oh yes.
And that's the one thing. He has so much experience in that realm. I mean, in a way, that's kind of how he won the presidential election as well.
Right.
Donald Trump has an aura about him.
Right. But you don't see him winning titles. You don't see him participating in matches.
He's doing his own thing where he's out of the realm of that whole celebritant thing. I kind of wish he and Mr. McMahon actually had a match at WrestleMania, but he did that tackle and the punches, which is going to be a WrestleMania moment forever.
Yeah.
I remember watching that live and I thought it was... honestly, that was the reason why I watched, because the Donald Trump thing was just so cool. I loved it.
And I look at it now, and you look at the representatives, and at the time I thought, well, this is a really stupid idea, but then you think about it today, too. There are a lot of older wrestlers or celebrities who just can't hack it in the ring, so having representatives is a perfectly valid way to prove your point.
Right, and then with the whole thing with him getting stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin and the story where... Donald Trump's people did not want him to get hurt or to get stunned. And Donald Trump asked this question, will it make the show better? And Mr. McMahon said, yes, it will make it better. I'm going to do it. But I think in a way he was being very selfless. It's like, I want to make sure that my presence sticks. And if I have to take a stunner, I'm going to take it.
But
it was a terrible stunner, but I thought that was cool.
But I think that's kind of that's been the McMahon mantra for a long time too. Is that is that Vince McMahon has always believed that the promoters should be actively involved in the show in some way,
right?
Instead of being a behind
And also it's not, and also it's not about your person. It's about the people watching the product.
Right.
The question was, will it make the show better? Donald Trump wasn't thinking about how it could hurt his reputation about being involved in pro wrestling in some fashion.
Right.
He was focused on, this is my job. I am here to help them, and I want to make this a good show.
Right.
And he did.
Right.
And it was a great moment. Him buying Raw was awesome, because that was like the whole commercial-free Raw, and it felt special.
Right.
When he made his appearance, it felt special.
Right.
And of any celebrity in the Hall of Fame right now, I think he probably deserves it more than most.
Right. Just because his involvement spans decades, and he has done nothing but enhance every storyline he's ever been involved in.
Oh, absolutely. And so with Donald Trump, let's talk about probably one of the first mega big ones. And I think if this person was not involved, WrestleMania wouldn't have been the thing. Cyndi Lauper.
Okay.
Coming out with Girls Who Want to Have Fun. The song came out around that time. Captain Lou Albano and a lot of wrestlers being in the music video, when the music videos were just becoming a thing. And that was like the first really big one. I think that promotion really brought home the aura of WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And I thought her involvement, and she was a manager for Wendy Richter, beating the Fabulous... No. Was it Fabulous Moolah? I think
it was.
Wendy Richter won the women's champion, and Cyndi Lauper was in there, and them doing the dance around.
Yeah.
Once again, another WrestleMania moment, because she wasn't entirely involved, but she loved the show, she loved the product, and you can tell. And I think that's another thing about Donald Trump. He likes the product.
Right.
He thinks it's fun. They have fun with it.
Right. And, when Vince McMahon came up with WrestleMania as a concept, he wanted celebrity involvement in some manner.
Right.
And celebrities, whether they are crossovers from other promotions or they are celebrities with no combat or wrestling experience whatsoever, I think his point was to include that kind of celebrity aspect to it.
Right.
That's why it continues to be successful.
Right. So with Cyndi Lauper's, because I'm not fully aware of what everything she did. I think that's really the scope of what she did.
Right.
It really brought to light. She was more about the celebrity portion, bringing wrestling into the celebrity portion, instead of vice versa.
Right.
So.
Right, and I know you don't want me to mention the MMA fighters and the boxers of the world, but they really...
It's whatever.
I mean, but they really... I'm not going to talk about their athletic ability and what they can contribute to wrestling as the sport and everything like that, but the reason why a lot of these celebrities have been brought in was for the star power.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily...
That's just what WrestleMania is.
Well, not even WrestleMania anymore. I mean, you get people now like Cain Velasquez and Tyson Fury coming in. They're there. They're there for more. They're there for as much of celebrity status as anything.
Right.
I mean, they're there because they're big names.
Right. So if we're going to be talking about fighters, let me say one thing, because I think...
We're not going to mention any of the wrestling aspects of it. We're purely going to mention the star power that they bring.
Right. A person who brought that kind of status into it, I think, is probably more culturally significant because of the timing. Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
WrestleMania.
Yep.
I wish he actually competed.
Yeah.
He was the hottest name basically at the time.
Right.
There was nobody else. He was the bad boy of celebritant.
Right.
He was a boxer,
right.
But everyone knew who he was. And the whole thing was Stone Cold. I mean, that was on a Raw, but that's a moment that will live forever, because
that was like one of the highest. That was one of the highest rated segments of Raw in its history.
And then punching out Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania, another WrestleMania moment. It's like these things. Like I said, the presence, the timing. I wish he had a match. If it was Mike Tyson versus Shawn Michaels, that would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But Michaels was injured at the time.
Right.
He was going to be going away for 4 years for the back injury. and that's why Stone Cold won the title.
Right. What else? As far I mean, there are so many celebrities that have appeared in WWE.
Freaking Ronda Rousey.
Right. I mean,
how can you not put her in this? You can say whatever you want, but she clicked to what WWE wanted, like that.
And she is the biggest star.
And she puts in the work at the Performance Center. I mean, honestly, the main event of last year's WrestleMania would not have been a women's championship match if it wasn't for Ronda Rousey.
Exactly.
And also, she was doing movies and stuff before that, so she was technically a celebrity in the mainstream eyes at the time, too.
Yeah.
And, she really was probably like the nail for the women's evolution in all of sports, all of combat sports.
Right.
With UFC, with WWE. I mean, huge name. I think if she does not wrestle again, I mean, she has to be a possible contender for a Hall of Fame in a couple of years.
Right. Then I even look at people who started out in wrestling, have gone to MMA and have come back, like Brock Lesnar or Ken Shamrock, who bring names into their own light.
Right. And what about The Rock?
Yeah, and The Rock.
The Rock is the most successful one of the two. Maybe that's the one we'll talk about later, is wrestlers who become celebrities.
Yeah.
So let's talk about celebrities coming into it. Pete Rose.
Pete Rose, okay.
3 times he was in WrestleMania, and he got tombstone by Kane every single time.
Yeah.
Is it like the greatest moment in the world? No. But he was there. It happened, and it's like, okay, they did it. They did it for no reason, just to see Pete Rose get tombstone. That was about it.
Well, I want to talk about a couple of failures, because when it comes to celebrities coming into wrestling, there are some very notable failures.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, can we just get rid of the elephant in the room and call out David Arquette?
I mean, you have to. He's a part of our fucking thumbnail. David Arquette. He was the main actor in the 90s for Ready to Rumble,
which was a terrible movie.
Yeah, it was like the WCW movie.
Yeah.
By the way, and he won the actual WCW champion without actually pinning the champion at all. It was a tag team match.
Right.
Yeah, that was a total failure. People were really pissed off about it because I think people would have understood it more if David Arquette had some matches and improved, like what Ronda Rousey did.
Right.
She did not just go for the belt.
And I think a lot of people are harking on, are really angry about the upcoming match between Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez because of that reason.
Because he doesn't deserve it, and he's going for the WWE belt?
Right. And, well, no, because it's his first. I mean, I know he has wrestled. I know he knows how to do it, but there are a ton of other really, really hard workers who deserve that shot before Cain Velasquez does.
Right. And I feel like this was a whole... I think this was a Saudi thing.
Yeah, it was a celebrity. They wanted this, and it...
I think it was non-canon. And he signed a multi-year deal with WWE.
I don't think it's going to be a good match. I don't have a lot of high hopes for it.
I don't think so either. Now, we did watch Cain Velasquez wrestle at Triple Mania, and I thought he did really well.
Yeah.
But he was a part of a 6-person tag where, there was a lot more involved with that instead of going... If he was just facing Brock Lesnar without the WWE Championship in the picture, that would be one thing.
Right.
But this is for the WWE Champion. But like I said, I feel like that's different because this is a non-canon show.
Right.
It's a mega show that's meant to...
And honestly, there are a lot of other issues that I have with this match that go way outside of the scope of this particular show. But what I'm saying is that there is a point in time where a celebrity kind of loses its aura because they decide, let's put them in the championship match right away without any forethought or foresight.
Right.
When I look at, there were a couple basketball players who also wrestled in WCW back in the 90s.
There was Luke Refrigerator Perry who faced Bam Bam Bigelow in the main event of WrestleMania 13. People thought he did better than it was meant to be, but that was the main event of the show.
Right.
And that was a WrestleMania. There was a much different scope there than anything else.
Right. So I guess when it comes down to it, really, there are...
Whoa.
What's going on with your... Oh, there it is. Okay.
That was weird.
There are a lot of successes, and there are some very noteworthy failures.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that celebrities in wrestling who are non-wrestlers, if you do it right, can be very successful to not only your brand, but to them.
Right.
So I think we've kind of exhausted that. So when we come back...
For the most part.
Yeah. So when we come back from the break, we will discuss wrestlers who have stepped from wrestling into the world of entertainment.
And just pop culture in general
Right.
as a part of being big things, because there was a lot to discuss there, too. So go ahead and take your break and join us back here in a minute.
All right.
And we are back. So with the whole thing about celebrities going into professional wrestling, we talked about WWE because that's just really where they were pertinent
And
for the most part.
that's the biggest promotion where they do that kind of stuff, and,
Right.
and they've been doing it for decades.
Right. Now, from there, let's talk about wrestlers who step into the world of the entertainment aspect. Obviously, we have to talk about The Rock.
Yeah, that's the elephant in the room. Let's talk about The Rock
Dwayne
first.
The Rock Johnson is a 8-time WWE champion.
Yep.
He wrestled very, very young.
Yep.
He's a third-generation wrestler
Yep.
with a huge lineage.
Yep.
And then he goes into movies and becomes the biggest movie star of the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And
One of
But-
the, yeah.
and fight me if there's anybody else who can go to the scope of the amount of movies, the quality, everything
Yeah.
that Dwayne The Rock Johnson
Right.
has done.
Right. What I like about what I think a lot of people in Hollywood like about professional wrestlers is that not only can they take a good bump, but they're not afraid to perform aerobatic moves. And they're also not afraid to act. They know how to talk lines. They know how to express emotion.
They can do
know
funny,
how to
they
build,
can do serious.
Right. They know how to build a story. And I think that that's the big draw that a lot of these big TV and movie producers get when they try to cast wrestlers, is that they have this already. And then they bring along with them the star power. They bring along with them an audience of people.
Right.
That they already know.
The Big Show and Ronda Rousey right now are filming television shows respectively.
Batista's another huge movie star.
With Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, Stupor. He's actually really starting to rack up a little bit of a movie career here, which I think is good because he's like 50.
Yeah.
John Cena.
Yep, John Cena.
John Cena was in Bumblebee, and it was actually a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's really good.
We're not talking. But we're talking about John Cena as it's not as big as Batista's or The Rock's is, but it's certainly.
Well, he's starting to rack it up there. I mean, he's
he
gonna be in Suicide Squad 2. That's not an indie flick. Let's put it that way.
Right, but he's not as far in as Batista is.
Right. Stone Cold did a couple of appearances in TV shows and whatever.
But he doesn't do that kind of stuff. Not as much as some other people do.
Right. Not like The Rock or Batista or whatever. Let me see here. There were a couple of others I had in my head and I totally lost.
Well, we can talk about something that's WWE related in the Total Divas franchise.
Yes, the Total Divas franchise.
The Bellas pretty much. I know it's a crossover with active wrestlers in it, but the Bellas, who are no longer wrestlers, they have both officially retired. They made that show what it is, and then they even have their own spin-off. And then a lot of their spin-offs have their own. I mean, there's an empire being created in of itself.
Right, and then there have been movies in this mainstream about wrestling. The Wrestler with Mickey Rourke, Fighting with My Family.
Yep.
A lot of the Hulk Hogan movies back in the day. He was just such a large. He was such a large guy that he had to be movies.
We can't talk. We can't talk about this without talking about Hulk Hogan appearing in Rocky IV.
Yep.
That was huge, and that was kind of the catalyst for his zenith in the WrestleMania years, especially the early years.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what else can we talk about here with this? There are a lot of wrestlers who even make cameo appearances in movies and TV shows. There is an overlap between the entertainment and the wrestling industry.
I think overall you can definitely say this, that professional wrestling is a wonderful thing because it not only brings together people who like professional wrestling, but MMA fighters who Ronda Rousey has claimed that, and she's even said that she was watching pro wrestling very young. She's called Rowdy, and she asked Roddy Piper if she can use that moniker. She did, and I think that's great. She didn't have to, but there's a respect there. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, professional wrestling is in a totally separate league. You can't compare it to a sport, but you cannot compare it to acting. You just can't. Professional wrestling is professional wrestling. And I think that's super, super cool. And, with the whole thing of Arnold Schwarzenegger actually probably could have done a match.
Yeah.
At the time that he was in. Yeah. He was in the Attitude Era. Right. There was talks with Sylvester Stallone when the Rocky movies were coming out for him to appear instead of... Oh, what about Antonio Inoki and Muhammad Ali?
Oh, yeah, that, yes.
Huge fight.
Where did that take place?
That was in Japan. Oh, that was a huge fight in Japan. It didn't end up being great, I'll be honest with you, but just the marquee about what that meant is significant. Very significant. And then there's now older people who are getting a recognition outside of sports like Ric Flair, who inspired so many people about the performance aspect of wrestling that they're really paying tribute to a lot of these people because they're like, that's a great character. I'm going to do that, but in what I want to do, like singing or acting or whatever. And they're like, hey. Oh, another good one. Just as I was thinking about it, Mark Henry.
Oh, yes.
He was an Olympic athlete.
Well, if you want to go to Olympic athletes, we can also talk about
Kurt Angle, Chad Gable.
All the amateur wrestlers that are now in the sports.
Right.
There are a ton of people that can cross over into professional wrestling because just as it is easy to find work outside of it after you're done with your wrestling career, there is a lot of things that you can do to come into it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that makes it great as well. It gives a very diverse pool, a very diverse background to people. It's not like football where there's this one set path, or basketball where you go through this set path, or baseball where you go through this set path to get into the majors. If you want to go into professional wrestling, you can, and people often do take different paths.
And then what about a celebrity who started to renovate a promotion? With Billy Corgan and the NWA.
Yes, Billy Corgan, who is a singer, has been a wrestling
Smashing Pumpkins, megastar in the 90s. I mean, even still now, Smashing Pumpkins are big. But really, he was known as the lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, and then just the love for wrestling. He brought
him, and he had the money to buy wrestling promotions, so he did.
He bought the NWA, one of the most well-known promotions ever, and revitalized it.
And that was after a brief stint in Impact Wrestling.
Yeah, and honestly, he's doing a really good job with it too.
Right,
and you can
can tell he learned from his time at Impact.
Mm-hmm. He definitely did, and I think that's great. It really is. And then there's obviously people who, people know who Mr. McMahon is now.
Right.
And I'm going to eventually assume that Roman Reigns is going to be following in the footsteps of Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, he appeared in the movie as well.
Yeah, I think he appeared in the Fast and Furious movie coming up with The Rock.
Yeah, I think so.
So there's a lot now with wrestling being as popular as it is.
Yeah.
There's going to be more crossover.
Right.
There's going to be more celebrities who want to try their hand in wrestling and vice versa. We're going to see fighters go. We're going to see these crossovers everywhere in wrestling, and people can bitch about Tyson Fury and Cain Velasquez getting these huge opportunities for for the amount of experience that they have, but it's about the name.
It's about the star power. They want to attract these big names.
It's an entertainment conglomerate.
Right. And I think that I think that there is an argument to be said that these wrestlers should be happy that they're involved in the same show as someone of that caliber.
Right.
Because they're not going to bring in as much star power as someone like Tyson Fury or Cain Velasquez.
Right.
I don't care.
You
have to be on a John Cena level before you attract those kinds of crowds, because ain't no one going to come and see you, Shorty G.
Right. But now, if you're on the same show, people are going to watch the whole show.
Right. People are going to watch you. So
so make the most out of this situation. and make yourself stand out across this, and then you will be fine. These people have just worked their ass. It's not like Cain Velasquez has not been fighting and doing this. Brock Lesnar was at the point of a Shorty G at one point. He paid his dues. He trained. He did this.
Right.
Now, could you say that he didn't have a passion for it? Yes. But he put in the work.
Right.
He did it.
Yeah.
And I think with Cain Velasquez, who has been training in professional wrestling and is like I said, he's a name. It's about that name power.
Right.
Make yourself stand out.
I mean, and it doesn't matter where you come from. I mean, I think we missed out on Goldberg too, who came in as a football player.
Yeah,
someone outside of
football,
the wrestling industry.
Right, football players.
And he knew how he drew a crowd, and people freaking loved him. And now he's on that level where you put Goldberg in a match, and people are gonna tune in because they want to see Goldberg.
Right. Now, a person who kind of has transcended where everybody knows him because of his tenure, The Undertaker, Kane. Now, what about politicians?
Yeah.
Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger, which we brushed on, with Glenn Jacobs, or known as Kane, who's a mayor right now.
Right. And
Linda McMahon.
Yep, there are a lot of people who came from the wrestling business.
It goes everywhere.
They know how, and the key is that they know how to get a crowd going. They know what they need to do.
You know, there are people who are kind of in that realm too, with Tyrus or Brodus Clay working for Fox right now.
Right.
And I think
Don Bradshaw Layfield working in, well, where does he work now? He's not Fox. Is he still Fox?
No, I think that he was fired from. No, he came back.
Okay.
He's a financial analyst.
Yes.
He's a very good financial analyst. He's very wealthy.
Yes.
And then with the careers outside, these people aren't stupid. They just went into pro wrestling at the time because they either loved it or whatever. But then they do something else on the outside, and then you're like, wow, this is super, super cool.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty about this. You don't see an MMA fighter going into politics. You see professional wrestlers do this.
Right.
It's just a cool thing.
There's that mix, that right mix.
Right. And you build, and you're right, it's about the audience building. You build an audience somewhere. Glenn Jacobs built an audience as Kane, and saying, hey, I'm going to be running for mayor.
Well, he's also very well known in his community, too, but he had a marketing plan. He knew how to promote himself. I like how he used a lot of flame motifs.
He did. It was really funny. Wasn't he he was an American Family Insurance agent?
No, Allstate.
Allstate. He was Allstate. And theirs was where all of our clients are superstars or something like that. I'm like, that is amazing. I love you.
I mean, people know, when you're a wrestler, you know how to brand yourself and build an audience. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Now, we can kind of brush up on professional wrestlers going into religious aspects as well. With Ted DiBiase now as a pastor.
Okay. Well,
Devon Dudley grew up in a family of ministers and pastors.
Okay.
And so they bring a lot of that influence into it.
Yeah.
So you actually see a lot of very religious people. I mean, wrestling is taught everywhere.
Right.
I mean, we've seen
aspects of it are taught everywhere, and everyone has a little bit of it inside of them.
Stephanie McMahon is going to be teaching at Harvard for business.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit. I mean, it's wrestling is such a unique business to where it can be taught. It's like The Simpsons is taught in college for cultural significance.
Right.
And wrestling, in a way, can be done as the same way. It's like you make something that was a carny-scene thing.
And it transcended the circus. The circus is no longer a thing.
Right. But they made a carny thing a global phenomenon in a span of 50 years.
Right.
That's amazing.
Right.
You can even say that in 30 years, probably. But I think with that, honestly, I really have nothing else to say.
I have nothing else to say. But do you have any final concluding thoughts? Any news that happened? I didn't see anything with worthy notes.
The inaugural AEW Tag Team Champions are going to be decided this coming week.
Yeah.
It's going to be the Lucha Brothers and the Private Party,
yep.
which I think is
Apparently,
great.
Fox isn't very happy with WWE's numbers.
No, they are not. They should not be, because they are garbage. WWE 2K20, I think, is the greatest game in the world. I love it.
It's so glitchy. It's amazing.
Oh, it's so funny. So I even told Peanut Gallery this like 10 minutes ago. So it was AJ Styles and I won the United States champion. Not only did the belt drop through the mat where you can only see the top part of it moving as the graphic went. But AJ Styles' theme song was Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson's. It's like, I was laughing. I was crying. I was laughing so hard. And honestly, that's the only way to enjoy this game until the patch comes out in 2 weeks. I mean, I like the game just for what it is. I think it's just a broken, guttural mess, but also, I mean, there's some fun aspects to it.
So anyways, next week we are going to be
Saudi Arabia all the way through.
Yep, we are going to cover Blood Money 4, and we are going to talk about all this blood money that WWE's raking in.
Oh yes. So we'll try to get like more statistics and stuff from that because I'm genuinely curious.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure we'll find it somewhere.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. If you do enjoy it, share it, and wherever you're watching, follow each channel wherever you're watching it. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Podcast One, blah blah blah. We would like to thank our sponsors, Anchor and DraftKings, for the sponsorships and the trust in this show of two brothers just complaining about wrestling and every aspect of it. And I hope Donald Trump doesn't sue us. So, bye.